This review is for a mature rated game. Viewer discretion is advised. Asobo Studio was largely responsible for licensed video games, especially those that are adaptations of Pixar movies, so it probably makes sense for them to try something different. Other than the 2009 racing game Fuel, it ended up being a narrative-driven game inspired by games such as The Last of Us and Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. A Plague Tale: Innocence, released on PlayStation 4, Xbox One and PC in May 2019, is a game that combines elements of action-adventure, stealth, and horror. The only way to review this game is to survive the Black Death. Now that sounds relevant as an upload in today's context, doesn't it?
Come back here! That means there are sick people in these houses. Don't touch anything.
Oh, they're not allowed to go outside.
It's more serious than that. It means that we could catch their illness, so stop running around.
Alright, sorry.
The story takes place during late 1348 in southwestern France, where the English army invades during the 100 Years' War. Amicia de Rune, a teenage girl of noble descent, is hunting with her father Robert and her dog Leon when she spots not only the English army, but also an infestation of rats infecting and devouring anyone and anything. The Inquisition troops look for Amicia's younger 5-year-old brother Hugo, who is suffering from a sickness possibly rooted in the supernatural. Amicia and Hugo barely escape their home village and try to survive and find out what's going on, except they've barely known each other. The sibling relationship develops throughout the story, and the two leads meet other characters who also develop or have their own motivations and backstories. Amicia and Hugo gradually lose their innocence of the title as they have to do some pretty ruthless things to overcome adversity. With little in the way of items, and with the possibility of dying being quick and easy, the survival of the characters is harsh yet compelling to witness. It's a good story that is well paced, though it seems to get a little ridiculous in the last third. Being a narrative-driven game, the production values are really good, and then some. The graphics are very strong, with attention to detail, a colour palette reminiscent of 16th century French paintings, and a grim atmosphere, all with the credible and well-researched intent of bringing medieval France to life. But the facial animation of the characters' faces could have been a little more animated, especially to match the emotional intensity and development of the characters, despite the solid realistic intentions. The lighting, while atmospheric and all, can be a bit distracting sometimes in regards to scattered items and visual cues and symbols. The rendering techniques that show hundreds and even thousands of rats on screen barely slows the game performance down, which is effective. The sound and music are also effective. The voice acting is pretty good and is mostly done by children to emphasize the childhood innocence of a narrative. The English voice acting done specifically for the game, and even the French voice acting recorded after, are both equally high in quality. The voice acting for Amicia and Hugo is probably the best.
I'm sorry. I'm sick.
No.
The music score is simple and complimentary, with some very emotional, haunting and intense compositions that go along nicely with the varying gameplay dynamics. The instruments used generally give off medieval vibes. Much of what you have to do in the game is introduced in the opening section of Amicia going hunting, and in subsequent chapters where you learn new techniques and items. Amicia can use a sling to aim rocks and other projectiles at objects and enemies, plus she can hide to avoid detection. The catch is that Amicia's sling can make roughly as much noise as running around carelessly, so avoiding combat and throwing objects such as pots to create diversions is important for stealth sections. Those of you who have played The Last of Us and other games that heavily feature stealth will find aspects of the stealth sections very familiar. In the opening sections of the game, you may also notice that the controls are a bit hard to get used to, and possibly for the remainder of the game too. The button placement, regardless of which setup you choose, is not exactly accessible, with 2 or 3 buttons being pressed at once for most actions. Even using the right stick to choose a specific ammo is a bit too loose, which definitely doesn't help in stressful situations. The gameplay mechanics, while logical and functional, do act a bit odd sometimes or may not respond properly in regards to movement or you moving the camera with the right stick. This is not helped by minor bugs, such as Hugo being stuck in a spot which can alert enemies to your presence, not to mention occasional troubles with movement and enemy placement. All this combined with checkpoints that rewind the game a bit too far sometimes, and long loading times, can make the game more frustrating than it ought to be. Sometimes it's hard not to feel impatient and just charge pointlessly through enemy territory instead of thinking about how to pass through a stealth section. Still, stealth and combat can be fun a large portion of the time, and is reasonably easy to figure out as you spot tall grass and opportunities for distractions. The game seems to pressure you to actually killing enemies in later sections, but despite that, the stealth and combat sections can get fairly repetitive. Thankfully, there are some moments, including having a character who's not Hugo accompanying Amicia, that change things up a little. Puzzles are a nice change of pace from stealth and enemy encounters. When it comes to pushing carts and boxes and other objects, or instructing Hugo and other characters to do certain things, you may have to put on your thinking caps. Aside from the aforementioned bugs and occasional stealth sections, escorting Hugo and other characters is really a nuisance, as it is all down to how you, the player, control Amicia. Plus, you can instruct Hugo and the others to do things such as crawl through tiny spaces and operate mechanisms. The most memorable puzzles involve the rats, who can devour Amicia and other characters if you're not careful. Rats are afraid of fire and light sources, so figuring out how to use torches and other items properly will ensure you do not fall victim to what is essentially the Black Death. Or you can extinguish a guard's torch or light source so the rats actually get them. Nasty.
Oh Lord, it's horrible.
Much like the stealth sections, there is the occasional puzzle that is hard to be patient with. One example is in Chapter 9, where you have to bait rats into a corner while pushing a cart. It is hard to tell with puzzles like this one whether there are multiple solutions or if the game expects you to do things very precisely. This can again apply to stealth sections where if you don't move around or knock out guards in a certain pattern, you might see yourself retrying a section over and over again. The game is linear, being the story-driven experience that it is, divided into chapters, plus there are a few boss fights that are surprisingly tricky. Thankfully, there are moments outside the linear move from A to B approach where you can explore to look for items and secrets, provided there aren't too many enemies around. Many of the items consist of ammo and materials used in an upgrade/crafting system that is very similar to a lot of other contemporary games. In time, you might be able to make less noise with Amicia's sling or boots. There are secrets that pertain to looking for flowers and other items, which either add backstory to the characters or give a small indication as to what it was like to live in medieval France. It's a very small touch, but it's appreciated. There are a number of problems with A Plague Tale: Innocence, though it's possible for one to exercise patience or not have an issue with the controls. This is a very good game. It is a linear, narrative-driven game that takes roughly 15 hours to complete, with the extra hours being devoted to retrying completed chapters to look for any items or secrets you missed, or just simply playing the game again. There are no multiple difficulties to choose from, with the vague exception of adjusting the game settings to the point of having a guard's alertness meter not appearing almost purely for the sake of realism or immersion, as HUD preset actually titled immersive. Overall, much of the gameplay is fun, and the production values back up what is a generally engaging and emotional tale, complete with intense and even horror-like sections that involve rats. Ooh, hate those things in this game. If you're thinking of giving A Plague Tale: Innocence a go, whether it's on PlayStation 4 or another system, you should. If anything, it's nice to see a game from a European studio and one that explores the potential artistic merits of the gaming medium.